Hello, welcome to my channel. I'm Tiffany, a retired librarian turned homeschool mom. And in this video, we're going to talk about this. So this is The King and I. This is a 1956 film. Before I watched this, my only knowledge of the film was pretty typical of people seeing pretty much the scene that you see here where they're dancing together. Again, this was created in 1956. The Hays Code was in full effect at this point in time. You're not familiar with what I'm talking about. It was a motion picture code, some of which was in effect here, where one of the things was you could not have a white person and a person of color falling in love, though they don't really have a love affair in this. But again, it was very, very racist, extremely sexist, and well, it was the Hays Code. It's not looked on favorably. It was created by the morality police, a bunch of stuck-up Christian white men, who, yeah, Christian, Protestant, very, very racist. Which is pretty much my response to when I finished watching this film. Oh dear God. Now, talk about the historical inaccuracies in a minute. There was a lot of yellow face in this. Now, most of us are familiar with blackface, white people, black makeup. This is pretty much the same thing, only Asian. So, Yul Brynner, who plays the King of Siam, is Russian. He's not Asian by the at all. One of the women who plays one of the concubines is Puerto Rican, and they literally darkened her skin because, of course, for some reason they think the Siamese had to be darker. And this is Siam, which is now Thailand, but that's what it was called. This film, which is very loosely based on historical events, takes place in, where on earth? You're going to tell me when it takes place. The 1800s. I think Abraham Lincoln is president. Here, let me pull up the, where on earth, what time does this, please tell me when this, so it takes place 1860s. So it takes place in the 1860s. So the basic story, if you're unfamiliar with this, is the King of Siam wants to be westernized, wants to be modernized, so he can basically hold power, because various different European powers are wandering around, as they do. This is still the age of imperialism. So they're trying to basically control the South Pacific. So he invites a British English teacher to teach his children and his wives and concubines to be more British, or specifically more westernized, and to teach them English. So she comes over, she's bickering back and forth with him. There's some side love story. I kind of fast forward those because the racism was insane. And one of his concubines, who was young and from Burma, and she was in love with someone else, and she kind of helps them. Basically, her lover, they meet under the darkness, and they want to basically escape. And at the end of the film, they run away, and he's kind of died, and she decides to leave, and he dies of a broken heart. There's a lot of back and forth. There's a lot of, obviously, it's a Rodgers and Hammerstein musical based on their Broadway play. So there's obviously tons of singing. The actors in this, I'll bring up the IMDb page here, are Yul Brynner, who again is the King of Siam. He is Russian. Deborah Kerr, who plays Anna Leonowens. And again, to emphasize racism here, you have mostly Matt. Looks like there's a Native American here. I'm going to double check this. Because again, it's, let's see, Carlos Rivera's. No, he's a Texan. Again, the yellow face in this film is, again, it was common of its time, but oh dear God, it was bad. Apparently, when I was reading up on this, the Puerto Rican woman who was actress who played in this, who actually was very good in West Side Story, which maybe I'll cover at some point, is unrecognizable from the makeup. And from me watching this, it's obvious. It's really obvious. I don't know if it's the harsh lights. The actress playing Anna in here apparently lost like 25 pounds because her dresses were so heavy. Because I don't know how authentic it was that she was wearing the 1800s, but she was wearing, her dresses are, they're large. They're very, very large. Her skirts are like huge. Now, I know this was pretty common for the time period for the Western world, because this is when they had crinolines. So, but she probably wasn't wearing an appropriate corset if things were quite that heavy, because the corsets were specifically at that time designed to help take the weight. Not to mention, these things were collapsible. I mean, they show this, again, it's kind of racist scenes where the skirts would flip up behind them. Yeah, they were made of circles of wood with fabric in between. So they collapsed pretty easily and they smushed. But they show the wives and concubines bowing and the skirts flapping up. So yeah, it's bad. It's very bad. It won a lot of awards back then. Again, this is 1956, which oddly enough is the year my mother was born. It won quite a few awards here. Scroll down the IMDb page here. Showing me. I know Yul Brynner won a Oscar for his playing of the King of Siam, and it's showing videos. And oh dear God, the yellow face. Yeah. Let's back in Spain. I know it won quite a few awards here. That's annoying. Overviews, details. Box office. It did a lot. It did very, very well. 45,000 estimated. Yeah, it made a lot of money. It's over 2 hours long. It's common for musicals back then. But yeah, it won a lot of awards. But again, it was 1956. The civil rights movement was going on, and was still kind of in the beginnings of it. So this is really, there's nothing outright distasteful except for the yellow face and the representation of the King of Siam, who had been a monk for a good long time, was fluent in English, was very familiar with westernized world, was highly educated, pretty much shown as a short-tempered buffoon, which he was not. It's also showed that, I'm guessing his concubines, I'm assuming his concubines weren't that stupid either, and that she was a governess, which is, now, some of these issues have to do with what this is based on, which is, bring back the film. Actually, I'm going to bring back the Broadway play here. Do King and I here. but it is based, at least loosely, on Anna's memoirs, which were fabricated. So, here we go. He was about 57 in 1861. So, yes, it was based on actress Gertrude Lawrence's, who they were looking for a vehicle for a client. So that was the woman who played it on Broadway. And then they found Margaret Landon's novel, Anna and the King of Siam, which is a fictionalized version of Lowen's experiences. But that was also based on, I believe, Anna's own memoirs, which were, again, the nonsense here of what she said. The English Governess and the Siamese Court. So she was not a governess. She was the English teacher, and then she was a translator, basically for the king, because again, as good as he was with English, he probably wasn't as fluent as she was. She was there for 6 years. Also in the film, her son was only like 4 when they moved over there, and she did have a daughter that she sent back to England to get a better education. He also died of malaria, not of a broken heart, which is again very insulting. And she'd already left. And she corresponded with the son for some time, but there's a lot of criticism of her own memoirs, and thus the fictionalized story is going to have those same problems. And again, this is very, very fictionalized. So it's not. It's similar to The Sound of Music, where they took the memoirs of Maria von Trapp, made them into a stage play, fictionalized it, and then that was then translated into a film. Now, the connection between this is something that I've read when I was looking it up on IMDb, was the criticisms of the time of The Sound of Music is that Rodgers and Hammerstein took influence from this, the love affair, you're having an argument with between the governess and the stern father kind of thing, and the weird back and forth between Anna and the first wife, who's the mother of the heir. And again, you have similar to Maria and the Baroness. Now, is this true? Maybe, maybe not, but these are pretty common tropes in fiction, where you have this specific genre of the beloved teacher, and then she has the love affair with the hand of the household. Heck, I can even see connections between this and Jane Eyre, where she comes as a teacher and falls in love with the very stern, in this case, guardian, kind of thing. It's a common trope. Did they take stuff? Probably, but again, they were writing films, and this did really, really well, as did The Sound of Music. And yes, I've covered that. I don't know whether it's before this or after this. And it will be talked about more. I did not like this. The yellow face bugged me. The costume design is fabulous, though. And the dancing. The songs weren't as catchy. Maybe it's because I watched it as an adult, and I'm more familiar, again, with The Sound of Music and Cinderella. So those were the Rodgers and Hammerstein's musicals that I am far more familiar with. But why the costume and the set design were absolutely fabulous. The colors, the dresses, particularly this gold thing. I mean, I love the way they flowed. They were absolutely, utterly beautiful. And the tie designs were intricate and unique. And you see that contrast, which I'm assuming was very much to the point, where the Thai women are in much more revealing clothing, as opposed to Anna, again, who's in these giant hoop skirts. I mean, we're talking, they were huge. You really see that contrast. I do not like the yellow face. I do not like the depictions of the Burmese or the Siamese, as they would have been known, which is now the Thai, how they were presented. But I did love the costuming, and the set design was done very, very well. The music was okay. It wasn't that bad. But again, I could be just comparing it to the fact that Julie Andrews is still Julie Andrews. And the people who, again, performed in Cinderella for Rodgers and Hammerstein, which originally, strangely enough, started with Julie Andrews. I'll cover that. I will cover the original filming. I have previously, if you want to check out, I have covered the other two versions, the one with Winnie Houston and Brandy, which is the more modern one, and the one that was common when I was growing up, I cannot remember. I covered those. You can check that out. I think they're under my Cinderella. I have a Cinderella specific list. So you can check that out. These are going to be under musicals. But it's if you're studying older films and musicals, specifically if you're studying the styles of Rodgers and Hammerstein, you're looking at these Broadway musicals of this time period. Again, this came out in 1956. It is really, really good to watch. And again, if you have a child who's very interested in costume design and like film set design, this is really good. Would I recommend you showing this to younger children? Maybe not. There's too many issues. Again, I go back to the yellow face and just the racism on here. If you're discussing these topics, it's good. You can definitely discuss the history of film on here. There's a lot of things to discuss. This could be very, very educational. It also could be very, a lot of people still love this film, despite its issues. So I think IMDb is still listing this thing decently high. Yawn here because I have a small child. What is its IMDb rating? It's still a 7.4. And they show that gold dress, which is just absolutely utterly gorgeous. While Yul Brynner is very, the King of Siam is very shirtless in this. He's definitely showing off the I am ultra toxic masculine male. Listen to me roar and pound my chest. And she is the stubborn, opinionated, I'm going to stand up to you female. That is very much the relationship. I do not know if they have a love affair. It doesn't seem that way. It's not like The Sound of Music where there's legitimately a love affair. Because in actual history, they get married. So, but nonetheless, I am sorry about the yawning. I have a small child. It's a little after 9 o'clock at night, 8 o'clock at night, and I'm ranting about this because I have a lot to say. But the age range, you can make decision. There's, again, it's 1956 musical. There's nothing outwardly, no blood, no gore, no swearing, no sex, obviously, in this. But there are concubines and multiple wives and a lot of yellowface and racism. Oh, so racism. There's lots of racism in this film. So it really probably is very good if you're looking at costume design, if you're looking at the history of Rodgers and Hammerstein and the film industry and the film musicals, even the connection to the Broadway musicals. If you're looking at the history of racism in Hollywood, looking at the Hays Code, this is really good to show because, again, you have a lot of yellowface going on here, and you have a guy who pretty much is Russian. Though apparently he also claimed to be half Japanese, and half Scottish, I think, during his lifetime, but he was Russian. Anna, in real life, oddly enough, was a mixed race. She was living. She was the child of a British soldier, and I think her mother was like half something, so she was like a quarter a quarter or a half in what would you consider native. Well, it wasn't Thai. I think she was in Singapore. So that's where she was originally. So, and nobody apparently knew this. She hid this as she would because her skin was darker, and she just claimed that she was of Welsh descent. So they didn't find this out till she died, probably for good reason. She's not going to want being remotely colored during this time period. It's the 1800s. Not a good idea. But very interesting film. I will give it that. Again, I love the costuming. That's the positive thing I can say about it. I love the costuming in this. And the dancing is really good. But otherwise, it's a good study in Hollywood history and costuming. Just, be aware that you're watching something that came out during the Hays Codes in 1956. So talk about that if you're going to watch this. So that's really the end of this video. If you like what you see, be sure to check out the rest of the channel. I am covering a bunch of musical children's books this month, along with actual, musicals. Mary Poppins, The King and I here. The Sound of Music. I think I have Funny Girl here that I'm covering. I also, I think, recently put on hold to add to my list of things that I'm covering is My Fair Lady. So, I will be covering those as well. I've covered The Princess Diaries this year. If you want to check out those videos, I cover children's books, various different films. Sometimes I cover YouTube episodes of various YouTube channels if it's historically and accurate or it's connecting to something. For instance, I do a lot of History Tea Time when I'm balancing stuff with The Princess Diaries. I do a lot of themes. I'm doing music. I've done LGBTQ this month or this year. Doing music now. I did Caribbean American History Month. I have vaccines this year. I always do spring stuff in March. And a wide variety of stuff. I have no idea what's coming. I try to do some Halloween stuff. The Guardians of Ga'Hoole should be running now, I think. Still, when you're running it, it's a long series. So, that's going on. I do cover, again, the series. I'm not balancing that with films. It's Owls. And it's 18 videos. The Guardians of Ga'Hoole is very good, but it's 18 videos and it's Owls. As much as I seem to like Owls, there's not enough to get film balancing for that. So be sure to check out the channel. My books come out Monday. My films come out Fridays, 8 o'clock in the morning. Pretty much always 2 videos, if not more, every week. I will occasionally throw in some travel or other educational stuff on Wednesdays. So check it out. Thank you for watching, and leave a positive comment if you have one. Thank you.